Happy Thanksgiving Eve, ladies and gentlemen. We are live from the laptop, so hopefully this is a good enough live stream for you. We will see. But we may or may not have some technical difficulties. Let's see what we can work out here. You can already tell that things are falling apart, but nonetheless, we have questions on the site that need answering, so we are here to answer them. Now, our first question coming out from Nason, pretty close to a GOAT name here. But anyway, says, don't know what to do with the flex. Also traded for Taysom. First thing is, Brock Purdy gets in a limited practice, barely throws today. I'm assuming Purdy misses. I think you end up playing Bo Nix. Running back, sounds like Pacheco is going to be good to go, but regardless, Chase Brown will be an absolute must-start running back, 80+% of the snaps, and one of the best offenses in the league. Drake London, auto start. Clearly, Evans will be an auto start this week as well. You still put David Njoku there at tight ends. Main concern that we had with this was going to be for the flex spot. And going down to the flex, I agree with you. I mean, definitely can have some questions here. The main thing that I would be saying is just, if you have the Chiefs as 14-point favorites over the Raiders, you need to go through and you need to play whoever the Kansas City Chiefs starting running back is. Whether that is going to be Isaiah Pacheco, whether that is Kareem Hunt. Right now, it sounds like it should be Pacheco. Sounds like he shouldn't have too many limitations. He's been at practice for quite some time. I think you go ahead. I think you jam him in. Now, let's move this over to our next question, and let me see if we can figure out how maybe to make the camera a little bit smaller here. Obviously, y'all know at this point that your boy's no rocket scientist. But apparently we can't move it to that side of the screen. Don't know how that works. Can't even begin to comprehend why we can't do that. But anyway, JB Terrell coming out with a Dynasty trade. This is a 10-team Superflex start 9. We're trading a future second, Zay Flowers, Jamison Williams for CeeDee Lamb. So the Lamb side, 1, helps you contend here right now, the second. And 2, at the same time, I think you have the most long-term value with CeeDee Lamb here, knowing that Dak should be good to go next season. So honestly, very easy to go with the CeeDee Lamb side of this for me. Now, Pizza Time coming out with a big time start sit question. Really appreciate you, my guy. Excited to check this out. Here at running back, for sure go with Chase Brown, James Cook over Bucky Irving. Well, 100%, I agree with you. I think that Bucky Irving looks phenomenal. I mean, clearly he is taking over as the guy in this offense. To be fair, you do have Chase Brown, James Cook seeing pretty much every single touch in their respective backfields. Whereas when we're looking at Bucky Irving, you do have him in a full-blown committee dealing with competition from both the end of Rachaad White as well as Sean Tucker. Going over to the tight end position, we see a massive bump with the snaps and routes run for TJ Hawkinson this past week. We're going to go with Hawk, and then we'll go with Bucky Irving down there in the flex. Given the Brock Purdy injury, I'm really not interested in starting Jawan Jennings, to be completely honest with you. Now, going over to our next question here. This one's coming out from a blank name. Says, for the receivers, please assume Lawrence and Purdy play. We'll talk about every possibility for you here, my guy. Going over to running back, I think you probably end up playing Kenneth Walker. I will say that this is going to be a much better week for Jonathan Taylor this week in comparison to what we've had so far this season. Where if you are looking at JT, this is the first game that we've had in quite some time where the Indianapolis Colts are actually favored. Going over to the receivers, assuming Lawrence is good to go, assuming Brock Purdy is good to go, in that instance, I still think you go with Jackson Smith-Njigba. JSN's on fire. Regardless, the Jacksonville Jaguars offense should be booty cheeks. Now, of course, it's going to be much better if you have Trevor Lawrence over Mac Jones. While at the same time, Brian Thomas presumably would be the only guy that is going to see targets in said offense. So I definitely think you could consider Brian Thomas, but JSN just has been, phenomenal for a 3-week stretch here. And obviously was a top-end prospect as well. And then going down to the flex, I think you play it safe. I think you just go ahead and take JT. Like we said previously, you do have a pretty damn good matchup here going up against New England, where you finally have the Colts favored in this game. Now, MC Zelmer's coming out with our next question. Says, which three to start between Lamb, London, Neighbors, and Pickens? Sadly, RIP, pour one out for Malik Neighbors. You cannot put him in. You got to go Lamb, London, and George Pickens. Sounds like Malik Neighbors is now down to the third quarterback for the Giants. RIP, right now, I believe the two worst offenses, according to Las Vegas sportsbooks, are supposed to be one, the Raiders this week, and then two, immediately afterwards, you are going to see the Giants. Now, D-Fresh coming out with a massive dono. Really appreciate you, my guy. Let me look you up with both a free trade question and a free start set question here, just in case we're not able to get to everything for you with our answer. But says, Mason, appreciate the hustle. You are a content factory. Would love your thoughts on the following. Headed into the playoffs, how do you like my chances against the other top teams in the division? I'm very sorry, my guy. I can't see exactly what your division is. Maybe that's something that we can update on the site for next year. I will say, first thing is, if we're looking at the league power rankings, we are number one. Now, I don't want to sit here and act like, oh my gosh, we have by far and away the best team in this league. The reality of the situation is the top three teams are all pretty much identical. I mean, they are the three juggernauts. These are the only other teams they have to worry about contending with. And then afterwards, you have a significant drop off to the rest of the league. So you're in a really good spot here, but we are currently sitting at 9-3, right? So I'm assuming that we're playing in a league in which you actually get to see 6 teams making the playoffs, the top 2 teams getting a bye week. So we're in a pretty good spot to get a bye. Here, if you're looking at what we have with our quarterback position, we are currently rostering Jalen Hurts, Bo Nix, and Anthony Richardson. And for me, honestly, I think it's probably a very easy spot to just say, you know what? You don't need to waste the roster spot on a Rich. There's just absolutely no world in which you're going to go through and you're going to start Anthony Richardson over Hurts or Bo Nix. It's a one quarterback format. Say you get super desperate and Jalen Hurts does end up getting injured. Then at that point, you could always go over to the waiver wire and you could get someone like Kirk Cousins or Matthew Stafford for completely free. So I do think that you're wasting a roster spot with Anthony Richardson here, and I probably would look to drop him for a different option on the waiver wire. So you didn't have Breece Hall at practice today. So with no Breece Hall at practice, I do think that it will make Braylon Allen, I don't want to say a must-start running back just because this Jets offense does look to be much worse than was projected out to be earlier in the season. But it would make Braylon Allen a very interesting running back at the very minimum that should have a very large role if you had no Breece Hall. We saw Braylon Allen flash earlier in the season. So I think I would cut Anthony Richardson for Braylon Allen. And outside of that, obviously at running back, you're in a great spot. Now we have Bijan, Kyron, both already through their bye weeks. You're rostering both of their backups as well. Now for me personally, I'm not a massive fan of just holding on to the handcuffs for my own running backs, just because when you do that, you kind of put yourself in a position in which, I don't know, maybe you have a little bit of a cap ceiling because you are allocating 4 roster spots to effectively just 2 running backs here. But I mean, even with that being said, we're in the freaking fantasy football playoffs in 2 weeks. You're starting these guys regardless. So you don't necessarily need that depth piece. Now, again, I would definitely cut Anthony Richardson, get Braylon Allen here, and then potentially have that third viable running back. But I mean, it's a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format where we do have, I mean, a very solid wide receiver we can throw in the flex because we have St. Brown, Justin Jefferson. So, I mean, not only does this team have the elite quarterback, 2 running back ones, 2 wide receiver ones, we have CeeDee Lamb in the flex spot as well. So it's just a phenomenal roster. Obviously, Jennings looks a little bit less exciting now that you are dealing with the Brock Purdy injury. But almost regardless, Juwan Jennings was never going to get inside your starting lineup. So for me, I think the trade, if there is one to be made with this roster, is very clearly selling Juwan Jennings with a tight end like TJ Hawkinson to see if we could go through and see if we can get to an elite level tight end. Like if you could go Hawkinson and Jennings to get to Bowers, Kittle, McBride, I think that'd be a very easy pivot to make. I don't necessarily see what else you could trade reasonably We have 2 elite running backs, 2 elite receivers, super strong flex, an elite quarterback. You can afford the elite tight ends. I think you go for it. Again, waiver wire move that's super easy to make. You cut Anthony Richardson, you pick up Braylon Allen. Let's go out there and let's try to trade for that elite level tight end. But you're crushing. We have the best record in the league. We have the most value in the league. There's not that much that we are able to say. Of course, I hooked you up with that free start sit question and a free trade question as well. So just in case there is anything that you wanted to send in my direction, I'd be super happy to take a look at it for you, my friend. But yeah, definitely go and try to get that elite tight end before the deadline is here. But Archer coming through says, hey, Mason, very high on Jason's production. Both tough matchups. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you. Thank you. So this is a tough spot for sure. I myself am freaking stuck playing James Conner this week. You do have the Cards as 3-point favorites. 3-point dogs. The saving grace we've had with James Conner is the 10 receptions over the past 2 weeks. I'm definitely not considering Mooney. Definitely not Hopkins. Freaking drop Luke Schoonmaker. For the love of God. Drop him and see if Braylon Allen's on the waiver wire. We wouldn't start Braylon Allen over James Conner regardless. Can y'all please let me know in the live chat? I'm having a look over here at my phone at the live chat right now. We can't pull it up on the screen. But would y'all be going James Conner or Jackson Smith-Njigba? Just to let you know where my little peanut brain's at. I see James Conner and go, oh, running back that's guaranteed to get you 10 carries and guaranteed to get you 3 to 4 targets at the very minimum. Touchdown upside. Offense can be good. It can be really bad. Maybe we go with him over the wide receiver 1B in Seattle. It looks like the majority of the people in the chat that have responded are saying to take the hot hand and go with Jackson Smith-Njigba. Again, I don't think you could go wrong here. Definitely don't consider any of the other options. I really hope the answer is James Conner because your boy's stuck playing James Conner this week. Seems like most people in the chat want JSN. I mean, this has been 3 straight weeks where JSN has led the Seahawks in receiving yards, receptions, targets, and fantasy points. Now, of course, 3 weeks ago, you had no DK Metcalf. But, I mean, JSN has just been phenomenal. I'm a little more worried about the matchup for Conner, though. Now, Seymour Nuts coming through with our next question. It says, start sit where we need to look for a second flex. So we're looking at Brian Robinson, Rico Dowdle, or Taysom Hill. Plan A is Brian Robinson. And Brian Robinson did practice today. Now, the issue is if you don't have the clarity with Brian Robinson, by the time Dallas plays tomorrow, you may be in a situation in which you have no other option but to play Rico Dowdle. So, for me, unless they clear Brian Robinson and they tell you, yes, this guy's good to go, I think you just plan on Dowdle. The Cowboys are actually pretty heavy favorites in this game, so they should be able to run the ball in the second half here. Now, going over to our next question, this one is coming out from Dustin. And here it's a start set. We need a tight end between Dalton Kincaid as well as Hunter Henry. For me, if Kincaid's good to go, I am going to be playing Kincaid. I will say, obviously, with Henry, the Patriots offense has improved dramatically, but still it's very difficult to assume that you have the same amount of overall yardage and points scored. Going over to the flex, you are essentially chasing somebody to give you a spike week here. Not going Travis Etienne under almost any circumstance. I think looking at Waddle, Addison, and Pittman is where we are at. If you look at my wide receiver rankings this week, I have Addison at 39. I have Waddle at 40. I have Pittman at 41. The benefit that you have with Pittman is you have no downs. Waddle gives you the biggest blow up this past week. Or maybe even Addison did. I have Addison than the majority of underdog drafts. I'm definitely more invested in Addison than either of the other players. So just to let you know where my biases are. But I do like the Addison game environment. I do like the Addison matchup. And we've got a little bit of a larger sample with Addison in comparison to Waddle. And it's not like Downs is the only other receiver in Indianapolis that has had volume this season. You actually have had Alec Pierce and Adonai Mitchell be able to take a step up. Obviously, it's just different, though, where you do expect that Pittman's a little more on the outside. But anyway, going over to Jeremy's question, my guy, really appreciate you. Let me hook you up with a free start set question just in case there's anything else that you wanted to send over. Saying from 1-7 to 12-12, hell yes. My destiny is with you. With Purdy, the Jets drama, and Reed's usage, I'm torn. Are we going to use Rico this week? Lock it in your lineup. I'll be back next week. Much love, my friend. I did hook you up with that free start set questions. Hopefully next week you can send one in for free, my guy. But really appreciate you and wishing the best of luck. Now, obviously, you don't need me to tell you. I mean, a monkey could tell you. We are going to go through and we're going to start Gibbs and Achane, of course, at running back. Wide receiver, we are going to start Nico Collins and Garrett Wilson. It is disgusting. I am assuming that you still have the expectation being that Rodgers is going to play. Let me go ahead and let me pull up the implied team totals for week 12. But obviously we got word that, week 13. Dear God, the season is just freaking flying. But the season's pretty much over at this point. At least fantasy season, that is. Looking at the Jets implied team total, has this moved much? No, you're at 20.25. So expectations are that Rodgers probably plays here. So yeah, you go Garrett Wilson in that instance. Obviously, we're playing McBride. Kenneth Walker is an absolute lock. So really for the flex, what we are looking at is Dowdle, Braylon Allen, Jawan Jennings, or Jaden Reed. There's a lot up in the air. We are dealing with the injury, of course, to Brock Purdy, the injury to Romeo Doubs, the injury to Breece Hall. Rico Dowdle would just be the safe play tomorrow, where if you are looking at Dowdle, the Cowboys are heavily favored. Dowdle has the vast majority of usage, so you could assume that Dowdle is going to be safe from a volume perspective. Now, with that being said, do I think that Dowdle has the highest upside out of this group? Probably not. Especially with no Dobbs. If Jaden Reed ends up seeing a few more snaps, if Jaden Reed ends up seeing a few more routes run, then maybe Reed, even with the lack of overall target volume, could be in a better spot this week going up against Miami tomorrow night. This is tough. I don't want to roll the dice on Jennings. There's just no way with Brock Purdy not being at 100%. And again, let me look at the updated projections that we have with the Niners, see if sportsbooks are telling us what they think about Purdy's chances of playing. Yeah, the Niners are currently behind the Titans, the Bears, the Jags with their implied team total. You can't play Jennings. Whatever you do, do not play Jennings. Full PPR format, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take Jaden Reed with no Romeo Doubs. Good matchup against Miami. Pretty high total with the game in general. Currently over under 47.5 points. The only other games that are supposed to score as many points will be the Lions, Bears, Saints, Rams, and Ravens, Eagles. And again, no Dobbs. I think you can't see the targets go up a bit. But let me refresh this. Next question coming out from I Heart Trey. This one says, Hall, Brian Robinson, Jennings, Thomas, Smitty all have concerns right now. Do we play Waddle to be safe? And also, which tight ends? I am actually going to be in this same spot with my own team where effectively I have Devonta Smith who looks like he may miss, but obviously Waddle playing on Thursday night. So I personally, like, let me just look at my own matchup and try to figure out what I'm going to do here. Maybe that can help you out a bit. But I think you need to be concerned. It looks like Sleeper just pushed out an update. They are making me. But obviously, Smith missed practice today. So with Smith missing practice, I don't necessarily know if we can comfortably rely upon him. We're going to plan on going Brees. Obviously, Brees doesn't play. Easy pivot over to Braylon Allen. Wide receiver, we have Nico Collins as an easy play in a double flex league. Yeah, you're playing Waddle tomorrow night. Be safe. I think you just have to. Tight end, we're going to go Hawkinson. And then down there for the flex, I think you go Brian Thomas now that you have Lawrence good to go. If Devonta Smith ends up playing, cool, you can go with Devonta Smith. If not, what I think you actually probably end up doing here is going with Brian Robinson. Playing the Titans, it should be a spot where the Commanders are able to run the ball consistently. And obviously, we have a lot of flexibility with this last flex spot. I mean, if Brian Robinson doesn't play, but Smith plays, cool, we play Smith. If Brian Robinson doesn't play, Smith doesn't play, then fine, we'll roll the dice on Jennings Sunday night. But again, my expectation at the moment, and I'm saying this as someone who has Brock Purdy as their starting quarterback, is Brock Purdy's probably not playing on Sunday. So I would avoid Jennings. He would be my last go-to. Now, Jay Colley, always happy to see us, says, traded Garrett and JSN for Jefferson and Hopkins. No quarterback has scored 20-plus points on the Pittsburgh defense. That is a crazy stat. Do we start Kyler 5-7, and we need the W? Okay. Burrow. Play Burrow. Yeah, definitely play Burrow over Kyler. Going over to what we have at tight end, I have Sam Laporta. I'm doing anything I can to avoid playing Laporta tomorrow. I need to figure out, is Kincaid playing? Obviously, it freaking sucks with Kincaid going late Sunday nights. But I, myself, am looking for any excuse to go ahead and bench Sam Laporta. Kincaid missed practice today, so I'm freaking probably stuck playing Laporta myself, but there's no scenario in which that's something that you want to be doing here. You don't really have to consider Burrow. James Conner, tough matchup, but who the hell else are you going to go with? You're not going with Hopkins. It's a phenomenal team, and yeah, you just go ahead and you take Joe Burrow. While I understand the concerns with the Steelers defense, you do have an implied team total of 25 points here for the Bengals. Sportsbooks know what they are doing. They are projecting Cincinnati. I'll just pull this back up one more time. The only offenses that are supposed to score more points, according to Las Vegas this week, are the Lions, the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bucks, the Bills, the Packers. The Bengals have actually moved their line up to about 25.5 points for their implied total. Now, Cryptic coming through with our next question. Here we are looking at a Dynasty one quarterback league where we're downgrading dramatically from A.J. Brown to DK Metcalf. And we are upgrading from the second rounder to Chase Brown. Chase Brown's like the perfect example of a running back that in Dynasty you want to say, oh, okay, he's proven to be just absolutely phenomenal. And he's young enough for you to assume that Chase Brown continues to have some large role going into the future. But the reality is the NFL just simply does not treat running backs in that fashion. So it's much easier said than done with Brown. Like, there's a very realistic shot that we actually just end up seeing the Cincinnati Bengals sign a free agent this offseason, draft a running back in round 2 or 3 this offseason, and turn it into a committee. So, Brown's a running back that you want to say, oh, he's proven enough to have a starting job next year. It's just not really how it works. A.J. Brown's definitely the best asset in this. A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, in the same draft class, actually both went to Ole Miss. A.J. Brown, much more productive. DK Metcalf, injuries there, blah, blah, blah. I don't know why I'm acting as if this still has any relevance whatsoever, just going down memory lane. for me, I think this trade is 100% up to your conviction with Chase Brown. Obviously, getting Chase Brown is going to help you contend this season. And if you think that Chase Brown is a starting running back for the Cincinnati Bengals next year, sure, you do you, and you go for it. The only thing that I would say is it's definitely not a guarantee. Now, Bengals fans since 2005, always happy to see us, says, think I might be starting Shakir over Debo. So based off Kincaid missing practice, if Kincaid misses, some more targets available for Shakir. Obviously, have to keep our eyes on Keon. I'm going to go Tracy over Etienne at running back. Wide receiver, you go Tyreek. Sutton is definitely in the flex. Tight end, we're going to go Kyle Pitts over Laporta. And then, I think you probably end up going with Shakir. Now, for me personally, just let you know, if Brock Purdy was good to go, I would play Deebo Samuel over Khalil Shakir. But my expectations are you probably don't have Purdy for a Sunday night. But obviously, playing in the same game, you should get clarity. Now, there's another trade from Cryptic where they're instead trading away Waddle in a second for Tracy and Downs. For me, Downs, Waddle, really up to you in Dynasty. I think, honestly, most people would probably prefer Downs. The issue that I have with this trade, especially now that Downs is injured, is like, how much does it help you contend truly? And Tracy, of course, is very similar to Chase Brown, almost to a greater extent. You would want to say, oh, he's proven enough to guarantee himself the starting job in 2025. But just the reality of the situation is the NFL does not treat running backs that way. So here, if you have high conviction with Tyrone Tracy, if you make this deal and Tracy's a starting running back in 2025, then you win. But the thing is, you make this deal, the Giants go sign someone in free agency this offseason, then it may be a little bit tougher to justify. But again, I think both of these trades very much come down to your conviction that you have with Chase Brown, your conviction that you have with Tyrone Tracy. Now, Shisk says, I'm undecided on my tight end and flex position before the week. Appreciate the advice. Appreciate you, my friend. Looking at tight end, you got to bench. I mean, not only do you have to bench Noah Gray, you got to cut Noah Gray, to be honest with you, my man. I mean, looking at Noah Gray, it's cool that he had the 2 receiving touchdowns this past week. The Chiefs offense projects out to be one of the best offenses in the league. There's just no way you can ever comfortably put him in your starting lineup outside of a Kelsey injury. Looking at Tucker Kraft, Evan Ingram, if you knew that you had Lawrence good to go, I would go with Evan Ingram. If Lawrence isn't cleared and if we don't know for sure Lawrence is playing by the time that Tucker Kraft is good, you just play Tucker Kraft out of these guys. Now, but if Lawrence looks like he could play, definitely pivot over to Evan Ingram. And then down in the flex between Tracy, Jalen Waddle, ETN, I'm just going to go ahead. I will take Tyrone Tracy. But again, when he plays on Thursday, of course, you want to get him in that running back slot, throw Nick Chubb down there in the flex just in case something happens. I may end up getting stuck playing Waddle again with my own team this week. So I would love to say that, Waddle's going to keep on doing what he did this past week. But the reality is that was his first game with double-digit fantasy points since week 1. Now, the Dayman coming out says, would also consider Chase Brown instead of Josh Jacobs. So Chase Brown, Josh Jacobs, tomato for me. They're both 3-down running backs and great offenses. I would say that Chase Brown's going to have a larger receiving role, so I'd actually probably prefer Chase Brown. I'd rather sell Josh Jacobs than I would Chase Brown, to be honest. And looking at this, it's a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format, so typically we just want to get the best player. After you make this deal, you'll have Chase Brown, Bucky Irving, Braylon Allen. That's about it. Dear God. It's a decent price point. I would way rather sell Bucky. Like, if there's a world where you can send Bucky Irving and Garrett Wilson to get Justin Jefferson, this is a significantly, and I mean this is a significantly better deal here. This is what I would be interested in if we could. I still view Jacobs and Chase Brown a completely different tier than Bucky Irving, and let them keep Charbonnet in that instance. Castillo says, I'm a playoff lock. This guy needs wide receiver. Do we win or lose this deal? So Pacheco obviously should be 100% for the fantasy football playoffs. Now, with that being said, of course, you do have a pretty tough schedule for Pacheco. It's a league where you can start up to 4 wide receivers weekly, so the depth does matter a bit. After you'd make this deal, you'd have Bijan Robinson, Kenneth Walker, Rico Dowdle, Braylon Allen at running back. You'd have Bijan Achane, Kenneth Walker, Rico Dowdle. So it'd be loaded up at running back. Wide receiver, we'd have London, JSN, and then an injured Josh Downs. So because if I'm reading this correctly, where this is not a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format, and you can start up to 4 wide receivers here weekly, so the depth does matter a bit more. In that instance, I think you probably want to hold on to the Pacheco and Cooper Kupp side of things. But again, I don't know. It is very tough to say because Achane is by far and away the best player in this deal. But especially if you're playoff bound, where we know Pacheco is going to be good to go by the time you get to the playoffs. Now, Easy E says, should we run with Richardson or go with Tua, Kirk, May on the waiver wire? I would definitely take A-Rich over Tua, May. You actually have the Colts and Dolphins offenses projecting out similarly this week. And obviously, we're going to assume that A-Rich monopolizes more points in Indy than what Tua will do in Miami, given Anthony Richardson's rushing upside. And then sit 2 between Tracy, Ramondre, Pittman, Garrett Wilson, with Downs and Pierce out. So for me, I think I would leave this as is. Like I'm not playing Michael Pittman in here. There's no way. If we had to sit 2, I'm going to be sitting Tracy's interesting to sit in comparison. Can I see what the underdog picks are in Tracy versus Ramondre this week? I'm definitely benching Pittman. And you definitely play Garrett Wilson. It really just comes down to what running back you want to bench between Tracy and Ramondre. I mean, he had some Devin Singletary usage. And again, you do just have what should be one of the worst offenses in the NFL with the Giants this week. I am so freaking burned from Ramondre Stevenson. I have this dude on there's no way I can start Ramondre. No, I can't do it. You have such a low floor with Ramondre Stevenson. Where Tracy, at least we can be pretty damn confident that you are getting over 50% of the snaps. You are getting over 50% of the opportunities in this backfield. And hell, you get some fun. You get something to root for tomorrow. Now, Bodie, always happy to see you. We need 2 flex spots here. We're looking at, oh, dear God. First things first, definitely put McBride in over Taysom at tight end. You play Tracy, and then between Hopkins, Braylon, Taysom, I probably go Hopkins. If you had no Breece Hall, then obviously we just swap Braylon there. But yeah, please play Trey McBride over Taysom Hill. Yeet your feet says, hey, Mason, start Kraft or Ingram? We actually just looked at this question earlier. And the thing with Kraft is obviously no Dobbs. You can possibly consolidate a little more targets between those top options in Green Bay. And the thing with Evan Ingram is if you have Lawrence good to go, obviously you raise your expectations dramatically with this offense. So if Lawrence plays, I would want Evan Ingram. If Lawrence misses, I would want Tucker Kraft. Now, the issue, of course, is Tucker Kraft's going to be playing tomorrow, or we're maybe not going to have that news with Lawrence. So I think it really comes down to the Jacksonville Jaguars reports tomorrow. If you think that there's a good shot Lawrence plays, I would go with Evan Ingram. If you think there's a good shot Lawrence misses, I'd go with Tucker Kraft. But I hope we are able to help out a bit there. Hey, Elliot, you can turn off all the lights if you want. Our next question coming out from Micah says, thanks for the content, Mason. Thank you. Going over to the flex, we are looking at Adams, Pacheco, Hopkins. Okay, you for sure go with Pacheco here. Reports are saying that Pacheco should be good to go. They're saying if he doesn't have any setbacks by Friday, he will be. Now, if you didn't go with Pacheco, the guy I'd be looking at is Devontae Adams. Obviously, we're operating under the assumption that you do have Rodgers fine and Rodgers still with this team by the time you need to make that call, which, I mean, if I'm looking at sportsbooks right now where you have an implied team total about 20 points here for the Jets, I think that would be my expectation. So plan A, Pacheco. Plan B, Adams. If Rodgers misses, plan B, DeAndre Hopkins. But I'd expect Rodgers to play. Now, Krakow coming out says, deciding between Tyreek Jennings or Marvin Harrison Jr. So the last thing you could do is Jawan Jennings here. I think expectations right now is there's a good shot that Brock Purdy misses. Typically, we're used to seeing the Niners project near the top of the NFL in total points scored. This week, they have an implied team total that puts them next to like the Tennessee Titans. Going to be a garbage offense in San Fran. Just simply not interested. I think you got to go Tyreek. It freaking sucks. Obviously, Tyreek's been very disappointing. But, I mean, a disappointing Tyreek Hill has still been much better than Marvin Harrison Jr. so far this season. But obviously, we don't love the game environment. We don't love the projections with Miami. It does look to be a worse offense this week than what we've seen over the past few. Now, Luke Cage coming through with our next question says, does Brock Purdy affect Josh matchup and Jennings use? So again, oh dear God, you have Purdy and Lamar. I'd probably go Lamar here. Yeah, if you have no Brock Purdy, it's just going to lower the need for the Bills to aggressively throw the ball. The over-under for the Bills-Niners games opened up at 47. That has moved down to 44.5. That's the effect of having no Purdy here, as it looks more and more likely that Purdy's going to be missing. Over-under on the Ravens-Eagles games, 51 points. I think Lamar has to drop back a ton. And yeah, I don't want to play Jennings. I'd way rather go Evans. Tight end, obviously, you lock in McBride. And then for the flex, we're just going to go ahead. We're going to lock in George Pickens. Now, Drowsy coming through says, should we drop Hopkins and is Waddle worth starting? I'm sorry, should we drop Dobbins? So let me see if I can find any additional updates with J.K. Dobbins. Last I checked, we didn't have anything really significant. Obviously, I'm operating under the assumption that Gus Edwards is the guy for this week. I think this is an 8-team league, so dropping Dobbins actually may be something that you have to consider, just because in an 8-team league, you are going to have phenomenal options off the waiver wire. Okay, so we finally actually got something 4 hours ago. Yeah, I think you can go through. I think you can actually drop Dobbins in an 8-team league in particular. Quarterback, we're going to go Love. Stroud has just been the most disappointing. You're going to go Kelsey over Jonnu as well. And then down in the flex spots, we had no Devonta Smith at practice today, which sucked. I think you go Jaden Reed in one flex, knowing that you have no Romeo Doubs in Green Bay, bumping up the target share that we should expect for Reed in this offense. And then a Waddle would be viable over Jameson. The thing is, like, can you play Waddle over Swift? For me, I am not. For me, I am playing DeAndre Swift. And I'm literally doing this with my own team. I have both Waddle and DeAndre Swift with my own team, and I'm going with Swift, even if obviously we are very concerned about the matchup in particular. But let me go ahead and submit this, and let's refresh here. Now, this question coming out from Mother Flocka. We got a group of questions from Mother Flocka. Excited to check this out from you, my guy. It's a start-sit running back. We are going to play Swift over Brooks and Charbonnet. I get it. Swift's in a horrible matchup, bad offense. He's been a bum, but still, that's disrespecting him a little too much. Tight ends, we are going to be going with Cade Otton, Taysom Hill is very close. Taysom should be in a really high-scoring game. Obviously, you have no other weapons in New Orleans. I'd probably go Cade Otton, who should be in a very high-scoring offense as well, though. And then for the flex, Zay Flowers, Lad McConkey are really the only two guys that you could consider here. If you look at my wide receiver rankings this week, I have Ladd at 17. We had Flowers at 25. To be honest with you, Zay Flowers should be much higher than that, but we will go with Ladd for the flex. Now, the other start sit question. We're going to go Burrow, even in a tough matchup. We go with Chuba Hubbard here at running back as well. Brooks had absolutely no role whatsoever last week. We go with Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas versus Pittman will be close if Lawrence misses. But the thing is, you probably go Pittman regardless down here in the flex, given the fact that we have no Josh Downs. But I want to say this is like a tough spot where we have to play Pittman, but I mean, hell, you got Barkley, so who cares? Barkley's going to carry regardless. And then the other league we got to look at, we are going to be going with Ladd and Higgins at wide receiver. Tight end, we are going to go with Hawkinson. And then down in the flex, we will play Jaden Reed. Obviously, if you have anybody going to the Thanksgiving game, though, like Reed, go ahead, move him to the wide receiver slot and move Pickens down to the flex just in case something happens and we need to make that pivot. Now, it's Chavez. Always happy to see us. Says, hey, Mason, need some help at wide receiver too. And also thinking about Laporte at tight end if Amon-Ra and Montgomery are out. Okay. So from what I've seen, it looks like both St. Brown and Montgomery should be good to go. I would 100% agree with you that Laporte would be much more interesting if both those players were to miss, though. Now, looking at wide receiver 2, I know a lot of people were in on Jacoby Myers, with Myers having a phenomenal week this past week in a tough matchup. But the Raiders being on their third string quarterback, having the lowest implied team total in the NFL this week, and Brock Bowers having 16 targets 2 weeks ago, I can't play Myers. You go Harrison, even if Harrison obviously was just much worse. And we go with Isaiah Pacheco here very easily at the flex, assuming that Pacheco is cleared and good to go. And then your backup option to pivot over to can either be Myers or Debo. I would say you can go with Myers if Purdy's out. If Purdy plays, you go Debo. But I think more likely than not, you're just going to be rolling with Pacheco. And then, yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think you can be looking at Sam Laporta at tight ends if we get official word. And obviously, we'll have the clarity by the time you have to make the decision tomorrow. But if you get word that we will have no St. Brown and no Montgomery, but I personally am expecting both to play. Now, I'm so terrible at fantasy coming through with our next question says, not sure what to do. Don't want to flex Tony in case Hall is out. Think I flex DJ and Reed or risk and play Pollard. Okay, so let's think through this. So, yeah, you have DJ Moore, Jaden Reed both playing tomorrow. So what you're saying is we don't want to be putting Breece and Pollard in the lineup. And then we learn, oh, crap, Breece is going to miss. So we actually need to put Pollard here at running back. And then all of a sudden we are screwed because DJ Moore already played on Thursday. You would have a pivot over to Amari if that did happen. So for me, I mean, I can't play DJ Moore. I know DJ Moore blew up last week. I know it's a good matchup where they should have to throw the ball a ton against Detroit. But you had 7 targets for DJ Moore in comparison to Keenan Allen with 15 last week. I think I go with Breece here in the flex. You just plan on Pollard at running back 2. Play Jaden Reed there at wide receiver with no Dobbs. And if we get word that Breece is going to miss, then at that point we can pivot over to Amari Cooper down in the flex spot, where it does seem like Dalton Kincaid may miss as well. So maybe Amari's a little bit more viable if the targets get condensed in Buffalo. Now, Driz coming through says, win and I get in. Trusting you, Mason. Salute, my friend. Here, quarterback Cousins is in a little bit of a decent spot. I mean, going up against the Chargers, it should be a game where you actually have the Falcons forced to throw the ball. A running back, obviously, Chase Brown, just an auto start, no thinking about it. Same thing with Kyron Williams. St. Brown, Puka, absolute auto starts, no thinking whatsoever. And then we're going to go ahead, we're going to play London in the flex. I mean, obviously, Higgins has been balling, but it is a little bit of a tougher matchup for Higgins going up against Pittsburgh. Now, Prestige Worldwide coming through. Here at running back, I understand. Dear God, we actually have a couple of running backs that are very interesting here. James Cook is even more appealing as the spread gets larger, and you can assume that they actually run the ball a little bit more. I'd probably go James Cook here at running back. I mean, if you actually needed 2 running backs, you go James Cook and Kenneth Walker, but here it says we only need 1. The wide receivers, Sutton is definitely the most exciting guy out of this list. The second player to be looking at is Mooney if he is good to go. But the issue is if you don't get that clarity by tomorrow, you may have to go with Jameson instead. And then down in the flex spot, obviously we're going to want to go ahead and take Kenneth Walker. But if you actually needed 2 running back slots and not just 1, you would go with James Cook and Kenneth Walker, and you'd throw Chuba Hubbard down there in the flex. As obviously Hubbard, it didn't lose any work whatsoever to Jonathan Brooks last week and looks like he is set up perfectly. Now, Red Zone Riz coming through. Quarterback, we are looking at Goff versus Bo Nix. Here, I think, honestly, in my mind, it would be more exciting to play Goff considering the fact you get to watch him on Thanksgiving. But I do have Bo Nix ranked 1 slot ahead of Jared Goff this week, but they're back. It's up to you. CMC and Kamara are going to be must-start running backs based off the receiving usage, even if the Niners offense is cheeks. Going over to wide receiver, we are going to be rolling with Kupp as a must-start option, JSN as a must-start option at this point, despite the tough matchup. We've talked about this a lot, Kraft versus Evan Ingram. If Lawrence looks to be good to go we get that clarity tomorrow, I think you can plan on Ingram. And then we're going to go Pacheco in the flex, and Zay Flowers would be the backup option. Now, Parrish, happy to see you. Quarterback, we are looking at Kyler versus Bo Nix. Kyler has been much worse than Bo Nix as of late. It is close. I still stand by Kyler in a 4-point passing touchdown format because the rushing upside's there. We're going to go CMC over Pollard. Both running backs should have massive roles in garbage offenses. Wide receiver, we're going to go London relatively easily over Smith, who is banged up. And tight end, we go Brock Bowers. Don't overthink it. Don't play Jonnu. LT Meow coming through with our next question. I don't see, I guess maybe we need 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and a flex, and these who we're choosing from. So plan A, James Cook, Isaiah Pacheco at running back. Kareem Hunt, obviously backup for Pacheco if he is out. Wide receiver, we're going to be going with DK Metcalf Sutton. I think you will go through and play Marvin Harrison in the flex spot. I would probably go Harrison in the flex and move Taysom to tight end over Andrews. Because you actually do have the Saints-Rams game projecting out to be extremely high scoring. And obviously, the Saints have just absolutely no weapons here. They are going to have to heavily involve Taysom. Now, Drewby says, hey, Mason, stuck at who we want to be flexing. I think you just go through and you play Bucky Irving. I mean, honestly, even if Brock Purdy was good to go, I still don't think you can play Debo over Bucky given the matchup. Daddle is a good matchup as well, though, where you could expect that the Cowboys are able to run the ball consistently here against the Giants, as we saw with the Bucs last week. Now, Jay Park coming through with our next question. Here, we need a flex between Jameson, Kareem Hunt, Jaden Reed. We are going to go with Jaden Reed. Expectation, of course, is that Pacheco is good to go this weekend. I mean, if Pacheco were to be out, the answer would be Kareem Hunt with how good this matchup is. But with Pacheco playing and no Romeo Doubs, I do actually expect that Jaden Reed expands his role here a bit in Green Bay. Quinn Taylor says, need help with quarterback and tight end this week, please. We have Goff with Tua, Richardson, and Darnold on the waiver wire. I think you go with Goff. Tua was a very interesting streamer over the past few weeks because you were looking at sportsbooks projecting out the Dolphins to be a top 5 offense in total points scored. This week, very different against Green Bay, much tougher matchup. We're going to go Kyle Pitts over Sam Laporta there at tight ends. I have freaking Sam Laporta myself, not only in the Flock League, but in just so many freaking underdog drafts. Sam Laporta screwed us this season. Maybe I'm salty. The only scenario in which we pivot over to Laporta is if you actually get potentially news that you have no Amon-Ra St. Brown. If St. Brown is going to miss, then Laporta does become viable. Now, MX7015 says, must win week against the player ahead of me. Well, running back, we have Chase Brown, so we're in a great spot there. Just a 3-down guaranteed workload and one of the best offenses in the league. Even if it's a tough matchup, got to play him. I will say, though, because it looks like we're going to play Dowdle at running back since he plays on Thanksgiving, just in case something happens. We're going to be planning on going with Chase Brown and then full PPR format. Not super excited about Gus Edwards, given the fact that you'll have the limited receiving role. You still probably go Gus Edwards here. You have 2 games this season with 10 or more points from Jalen Waddle. I don't know if I can be telling people to play Waddle. I would rather have Braylon Allen in my starting lineup if Breece Hall misses, however, than Gus Edwards with no J.K. Dobbins, because at least with Braylon Allen, you are going to get the receiving usage. Now, real Superman coming through with the start sit question. The auto starts clearly are Joe Mixon and Alvin Kamara. Wide receiver auto starts are Jamar Chase, A.J. Brown, regardless of matchup. Tight ends, George Kittle, auto start regardless of Purdy's playing or not. Really just comes down to the flex. Are you playing Kyron, DK, Ladd, Ridley? I'm telling you, I wish this was the issue I had with my team. It's the exact opposite. I don't have good options. But yeah, you 100% play Kyron Williams. It's been frustrating a little bit for Kyron owners. I drafted a lot of Kyron in underdog drafts this year. Given the skew with the passing tendency once this team's gotten to the goal line, since you've had both Kupp and Puka come back in. But still, Kyron does see every single snap and every single touch in this backfield. Maybe we get some positive touchdown regression soon. Yak Season says, Neighbors seems hungry. Do we start him over London? No. Neighbors may be hungry, but he is currently sitting here with his 3rd quarterback on the step chart. So I can be hungry, but if I show up to Thanksgiving dinner and I'm looking at a turkey that the dog got to eat, I'm going to stay hungry. Now, Ghost coming through says, hey, Mason, got Carr for week 14, deciding on Achane in the snow. Wide receiver 3 and tight end / flex. Need help. All love, bro. Always happy to see you, my friend, of course. Thank you for sticking with us for so long. I think we probably just need to go through and play Bo Nix over CJ Stroud at this point. I mean, we just got to throw in the towel at some point with CJ Stroud. I know that maybe it's a little bit, I'll say under the radar by any means, but obviously like CJ Stroud wasn't going the same place that Mahomes was in drafts. So maybe Stroud doesn't get the same type of heat. But realistically, has there been a worse pick in fantasy drafts at quarterback this season other than CJ Stroud? Going over to wide receiver, I'd rather have Harrison over Jameson, assuming St. Brown's going to go. Tight end, Hawkinson, just lock in. The role is expanding. Looks great. And then down there in the flex, for me, I'd probably go Dowdle ahead of Tracy. You do have the Giants, I want to say 6-point dogs in this matchup. Let me look at this. The largest spreads this week, you have the Chiefs favored by 13 over the Raiders. The Lions 9.5 over the Bears. The Bills by 7 over the Niners. Commanders, Bucks, Broncos, all 5.5-point favorites. The Lions actually moved a ton. Dear God. You actually seen the line move to now the Cowboys are only 3.5-point favorites over the Giants, but I think that you probably do have the Cowboys able to run the ball consistently, and we've seen Dowdle is going to have the vast majority of the usage. If you're looking for a higher ceiling option, that's going to be Jameson. And we're definitely going to go Jameson in the instance in which you potentially have Amon-Ra St. Brown missing anything. Now, Monsini says, lost Dobbins, so I need a flex. Have a great Thanksgiving, Mason. Really appreciate you, my guy. And I hope you have a great Thanksgiving as well. Here for your flex, we're looking at Dobbins, DJ Moore, Hopkins, Jerry Jeudy. I think we ranked DeAndre Hopkins too high in the rankings this week if you're looking at the snap rates for what we've had in KC. Now, again, I do want to reiterate, though, that the Chiefs' offense should be a phenomenal one. Can I see if Underdogs put out projections with Gus Edwards so far? I mean, yet. Again, the issue with Edwards is just the man's not going to catch the ball at all, so does it freaking matter? He's higher, lower, 45.5 rushing yards, and you're not going to have anything as a receiver, so I don't want Gus. I mean, this is actually this listed as maybe a non-PPR league. If this is a non-PPR format, I think you go with Gus Edwards. If this is a full PPR league, we take the guaranteed target volume of Jerry Jeudy. But obviously, Judy is in a tough matchup. But I really appreciate you and really hope that you have a great Thanksgiving here. And again, I'm sorry for a little bit of confusion, but non-PPR, you go Edwards, full PPR format. I think our rankings were initially wrong. I think we go with Jerry Judy. The Soaring Eagle coming out with our next question. Quarterback between Goff and A-Rich. It's a little bit of a better spot for A-Rich than what you've had previously, but the Lions' best offense in the league. I think that they try to put on a show on Thanksgiving. We're going to go Goff. And then down in the flex, we have no downs. I'm not flexing to tight ends. Actually, maybe we are flexing. I think you freaking flex Hawkinson. If Bigsby's good to go, you flex Hawkinson. If you have no Bigsby and Lawrence does play, then I think you can look at Travis Etienne. Yonder coming through. Wide receiver, we have Waddle with the big game. If Lawrence is good to go, Brian Thomas is plan A. This is just tough because we don't have much injury news, and we're really going to have to see if we get any reports tomorrow. Okay, so plan A for a wide receiver here. Lawrence plays, you play Brian Thomas. Plan B, Lawrence misses, Darnell Mooney plays, you go Darnell Mooney. Plan C, Lawrence misses, Mooney misses, you go Waddle. Plan D, you go back to Brian Thomas. And then down here in the flex, plan A's Kareem Hunt if it looks like Pacheco's going to miss. And if not, I think you just play it safe with Dowdle. I mean, if you knew Mooney was 100% good to go, you could go with Mooney. But the issue, of course, is with Dowdle playing early, you have to make that call before you have the confirmation. Carter coming through, says Stafford or Tua at quarterback. I have this same decision point with my own team this week, and I'm personally going through and taking Stafford. I mean, you do have much lower projections with the Dolphins offense this week than what we have seen previously. Sorry, we're seeing if we can lower the camera here a bit. Maybe that's going to be too low, but it is what it is. Let's see. How does that look? Nah, we're fine. But anyway, if we're looking at Stafford versus Tua. You actually do have the Saints-Rams games projected out to be one of the highest scoring games of the week. Smith or Tracy at the flex. I think you play it safe with Tyron Tracy. Like, I have Smith right now with my team. I have super low expectations with him missing practice especially. Plus of the fact that he wasn't really seeing much volume regardless before he was injured. Now, you mixing me crazy coming through. Says, hey, Mason, I was 1-6, now 6-6. Hell yes. Love to hear that, my friend. Running back, I'm going to go Dowdle over Chubb in a full PPR format, given the fact that Dowdle should have a little more receiving usage. And you actually have the Cowboys projected out to score more points this week than the Browns. Going over to wide receiver, we're going to go with Harrison over Jennings. I don't think you can play Jennings with what appears to be no Purdy. Half PPR format, we go Chubb down here in the flex. If Purdy misses, and if Purdy plays, you pivot over to Jennings. But obviously a lot hinges on Purdy at the moment. I am personally expecting that Purdy does miss, with the over-under of the game only being 44 points and the spread being 7 where the Bills are favored. I'm assuming sportsbooks are telling us that we shouldn't expect Purdy's good to go. Now, Adam coming through with our next question. Quarterback, we're looking at Goff and Stafford. I think you could just go ahead, you play Matthew Stafford. Obviously, just rush first offense versus pass first offense. Running back, Derrick Henry, CMC, the locked and loaded guys, even if we have dramatically lowered expectations for the Niners offense. You go Terry McLaurin here at wide receiver very easily. I'm going to go Kyle Pitts over Disley, but obviously that is getting closer. And then we go with Dave Montgomery in the flex. But because obviously Montgomery plays on Thursday, we're going to put Montgomery at running back. We're going to move CMC down to the flex. Now, Julian, always happy to see us, says, need help deciding tight end in a flex. Gut says to go with Tracy and Taysom. Thanks, bro. Thank you. Tight ends, I would go Taysom over Jonnu. Again, expectations are lowered for this Dolphins offense this week in comparison to where they've been. And then down in the flex, I 100% agree with you. I think you go with Tracy here. Like, the only world in which I'm not going Tracy is if we're told before the Giants game tomorrow, hey, Breece Hall is going to miss. Braylon Allen's the locked-in starter. And if they tell us that, then at that point, I think you can pivot over, and I think you can go with Braylon Allen. But I'm assuming you're not going to get that clarity by the time you need to make that call. Now, Elijah Hampton coming through with our next question. We need a flex. We're looking at Kenneth Walker, Tracy, Braylon Allen, Garrett Wilson, Debo, Jaden Reed. I just lock in Kenneth Walker. I mean, with Walker, obviously, I don't want to sit here and act like this is the best matchup in the world. You're going up against the Jets. They are favored slightly in this game, but you have the guaranteed receiving usage. You're going to get 4 or 5 targets minimum for Walker here. Wilson, Debo, and Tracy all in garbage offenses at this point. Reed, you don't get Reed and Kenneth Walker probably have the same amount of targets this week. And then obviously with Walker, you get the rushing. Now, Jaden coming through with the start set. Here, quarterback between Goff, Purdy. It looks like Purdy's going to miss. Got to play Goff tomorrow for sure. Running back, Chase Brown, just absolute locked and loaded guy with Brees banged up. Wide receiver, we're going to go St. Brown and Puka. This is a phenomenal team. Tight end Hawk. And then down in the flex, if Brees practices, you go Brees here in a full PPR format. If Brees misses practice tomorrow and we have that clarity by the time we need to make this decision, then you could play David Montgomery instead. But obviously you should have, Brees has had 1 game with fewer than 4 targets all season. So if Brees plays full PPR format, just get a massive floor. Now, Michelle coming through with our next question. Running back, Dowdle, Brian Robinson, James Conner. Bad offense, injured, horrible matchup. I'm going to take horrible matchup with James Conner. And then down in the flex, we're going to go with DK Metcalf. A Metcalf missed practice. That freaking sucks. Will be something to monitor. I have Metcalf with my own team. Very, very, very much regretting trading away Ladd McConkey for DK Metcalf. I'll tell you that much. Now, going through to our next question from Badger. This is Herbert versus CJ Stroud. Decent little matchup for Herbert here. If you look at my quarterback rankings, we have Herbert at 12, Stroud at 15. I would be more excited about Stroud if we actually have Lawrence playing. And then down in the flex, this just freaking sucks because obviously it looks like Smith's probably going to be somebody that ends up he didn't practice today. Please be at practice tomorrow, Devonta Smith. If Smith plays, you go Smith. If he doesn't, you go with Amari. So you're just going to monitor the practice reports that we have with Smith. Skip Bayless, happy to see it. On a 3-game win streak, 7-5. Help me out, my guy. Running back, I've done a lot of research this week, and I've really been diving into the numbers. I've been watching the tape. I've been just spending every waking second trying to figure this out. But I think the number one sleeper running back is this guy named Saquon Barkley. I know a lot of people maybe haven't heard of him before, but he went to Penn State, actually used to play for the Giants, and I have a feeling that he's going to have a pretty good week this week. It's just a hunch, but we probably want to be putting him in our starting lineup, my friend. Now, going over to running back, we are going to be going with James Conner. It's a tough matchup, but his offense should still be better than what you get with the Giants. Wide receiver, London, Puka, locked and loaded starters. And then tight end, we are going to go with McBride. And then down in the flex, we are going to go with Evans. And we are going to assume that Evans does indeed play more snaps and run more routes than we saw a week ago. So, not a bad spot by any stretch of the imagination. Now, let's move this over to our next question. Phoenix Lance, long time member of the flock, of course. And here, let me do something real quick. Ooh, nothing better than us on the laptop having no idea what we are doing setting up this stream. Okay, bam. We got that going. But anyway, I just wanted to see. I knew Phoenix Lance was, I think, number 2 with the leaderboard at the moment. I didn't know if we backed out and refreshed if he was going to jump Nick here or not. So I wanted to refresh to make sure that we had that correct for him. But anyway, I know he probably doesn't even care about that. But anyway, I'm a little worried about Connor versus Minnesota. Should we pivot? Also, would he go with the Chiefs or Cowboys DST? The Chiefs' defense this week in fantasy is by far and away the best defense, not even really close. I mean, they are 13.5-point favorites going up against a third-string quarterback here. You for sure go with the Chiefs. Who else could you pivot to? Rico Dowdle? Rico Dowdle's in a garbage offense. So I think you go with James Conner. I have Conner in my lineup. I'm terrified as well. The only scenario where I pivot is if Breece Hall gets ruled out and you really wanted to play Braylon Allen instead, I'd understand it. But I think you probably end up playing Conner and just lowering expectations with the tough matchup. But I will say this is exactly what we said about Jonathan Taylor last week. We were like, oh yeah, tough matchup, lower expectations, but you still play him. And he scored 3 points. Daniel says, I need you, my GOAT. We are 5-7. Ooh, you definitely need to win this week, my friend. Definitely. Running back, here's what we need. We need to send up a little prayer and a dance that Breece Hall ends up playing. Going over to RB2, I would play Dowdle over Stevenson and Tracy and Edwards. Edwards just won't catch a single ball. Going over to wide receiver, we have no Ayuk, we have no Shaheed, we have no Rice. Yeah, this is a team that just needed to pivot over to a rebuild, my friend. Wide receiver, I think you're freaking stuck playing what? Waddle and Dell? This is a rebuilding team here. Tight end, we go with Trey McBride. We go with Tracy. And full PPR format, F it, Taysom in the flex. I don't know if I'm just a saltier Ramondre Stevenson owner that is tired of these absolute dud performances. It's definitely a much better matchup for Ramondre this week. But I wouldn't fault you at all for going Taysom Hill over Ramondre. Can y'all please let me know in the live chat right now? I'm looking at the chat on my phone. Would y'all rather play Taysom Hill or Ramondre Stevenson? And Dylan says he would rather go Gus Edwards. Probably the correct call, to be honest. Let's throw Gus Edwards in there. Are you going to go Taysom, Gus, or Ramondre? We got Stevenson, Taysom, Stevenson, Worthy, Taysom. Yeah. Like I said, I think we plan on Taysom. If you want to go Edwards, you can. Just Edwards isn't going to catch the ball. And the Saints project out, score a lot of points this week, and they have no receivers, only Kamara and Taysom. That's the only way they can move the ball. Harry Meow coming through says, appreciate the help all season. Help me win in 2022. Love to hear it, my friend. And hopefully we can go through and win again this year. We are going to go with Montgomery over Bucky Irving. Obviously, Bucky balled out this past week. Great matchup this week, but Montgomery's in the best offense in the league. Wide receiver, I'm going to go Evans over Tyreek. I like the spot for the Bucs offense a little bit more than Miami this week. We're definitely going to play Trey McBride over Jonnu. And then down in the flex spot between Bucky, Tyreek Hill, it is up to you. I'm going to tell you, every single person in this live chat right now is going to scream, Bucky, 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 Bucky. He's the guy crushing. He's the guy with the great matchup. My little pea brain, just let you know what I would do with my team. I would go Tyreek Hill over Bucky Irving, but I would flip Tyreek and Evans in the lineup because Tyreek does play on Thursday. So just in case something happens. Go Utes Tommy coming through. Says we have HN Hall, Lamb T. Can't start everyone. It's a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex formats. I'd rather Bijan over Chase Brown. So yeah, I think you can do this, especially with the rumors that maybe Rodgers is hanging him up or they're benching him, tomato. I think you can go ahead and make that move if you really want. Thing is, Chase Brown may not be that big of a difference versus Bijan Robinson rest of season if he keeps that same workload though. Now, California coming through says, Neighbors has me worried. What are we doing in the second flex? I think you go Brian Thomas if Lawrence is good to go. You definitely play Neighbors over these guys. I think here's my favorite to least favorite options. Favorite option, Braylon Allen if Breece Hall misses. Now, if Breece Hall plays, obviously that gets erased. Second favorite option, Brian Thomas if Trevor Lawrence plays. If Trevor Lawrence misses, that gets erased. Third favorite option, Devonta Smith if he plays. Now, if Devonta Smith misses, that gets erased. Fourth option, Brian Thomas with no Lawrence. Hopefully that goes over every scenario for you, my friend. Core ops coming through yet again. We're looking at Etienne, Chubb, Swift, Waddle, and Devonta Smith. Swift, horrible matchup. Horrendous. Disgusting. Want nothing to do with it. But Devonta Smith may not play. What's actually hilarious, I have all these players on my team. I'm pretty much stuck in the same spot, so I have to figure this out. Realistically, what am I going to do tomorrow? Like, if they tell me right before the Bears game, hey, Devonta Smith's going to play, I'm going to play Devonta Smith over DeAndre Swift. It's too bad of a matchup for Swift. Too bad of a game environment. Now, if they don't give me that clarity, am I willing to roll the dice that Devonta Smith plays? Have a backup of... No, because Jalen Waddles plays on Thursday as well. I would rather have Swift over Waddle. So unless they tell you for sure Devonta Smith is playing, I think you have to play DeAndre Swift. If they tell you Devonta Smith's going to be good to go, you play Smith. But we probably don't get that clarity by the time we have to. Now, I went to Jared says, I shouldn't need to ask, but we've lost 5 in a row. Between Kyler and Love, I have them ranked back-to-back in our ranks. I'm going to go Kyler in a 4-point passing touchdown format because you get a little more rushing upside. DK misses practice. We don't know if Lawrence is going to be good yet. If DK plays, Lawrence misses, give me DK. And then down in the flex, dear freaking God, we go James Conner. We are heavily needing a better game from Jonathan Taylor this week. I think it's a great team. I can see where our team's been sucking, though. But I think at least with Jonathan Taylor, I think we should get a significant improvement in comparison to what we've had previously. Manifest Destiny coming through with our next question. Tight ends between Otten and Taysom. I'm going to go ahead and take Taysom Hill. Down here in the flex, we will go with Rico Dowdle. I'm assuming that Jawan Jennings is going to miss. And you do have the Cowboys favored by about 3.5 points. Go Utes Tommy, always out here. Wide receiver between Adams, Pearsall, Keon, Harrison, Debo, Ridley. Think through this. Tight end, you for sure go with David Njoku. Wide receiver, plan is Adams. We can't play Pearsall, can't play Keon. I think you go Adams and Harrison. Minnesota's a good defense, but they do a lot of points to opposing wide receivers. I think we go Bucky and Dowdle at running back. If you wanted to make a change, it'd be Ridley over Dowdle. Just the offense is going to be really bad. But obviously, full PPR format, you're going to get the guaranteed receptions. Gavin says, I need a win this week. I'm 6-6. Please help. Definitely go with Jaden Daniels for sure over Love. Seems like he's still dealing with the ribs, but he's still running a bit. Running back, this is an 8-team league. You're just freaking loaded. We go with Gibbs, Joe Mixon. Wide receiver, we are going to be taking Amon-Ra St. Brown and Tyreek Hill. The flex, if Breece is good to go, you go Breece. And if he's not, you go Jonathan Taylor. But this is going to be a situation where you know exactly where you stand after the games tomorrow. Now, BG Renat says, JT plus Kate Otten plus a 2025 first for Cook, McBride, Rashad Whites. I have Bucky Irving and Kyler Murray 7-5. It's a Dynasty half PPR 8-team league where we're in second place. Okay. And it is a super flex as well, I assume. But honestly, it doesn't really matter. It's an 8-team league. JT to James Cook. This point, I think it's a lateral move in Dynasty. We currently have them ranked back to back. Cade Otton to Trey McBride, a massive upgrade. We're paying the first round pick to get it done. Rachaad White, frankly, doesn't really matter, especially in an 8-team league. I would say if you could sell Jonathan Taylor, Cade Otton, and get back James Cook, Trey McBride, that would be an absolute no-brainer. So if you could go through and if you could just make this deal and you don't include a 2025 first. So if it's just straight up Jonathan Taylor, Cade Otton for James Cook, Trey McBride, and maybe instead you include a 2025 second rounder, I think that would be more appealing, and I would absolutely love to make that pivot. Selling the first rounder in an 8-team league where it's guaranteed to be a top 8 pick is a little bit tough just because the value of that asset versus Rachaad White is a massive gap. Where in an 8-team format, Rachaad White's probably not really going to make a difference for you. Obviously, this move will help you contend this season, however. So, it's very much a fair trade and you can make it. My only hesitation is selling, because like a mid-2025 first is pretty much the same thing as an early 2025 first in a 12-team league. If you're playing in an 8-team format, that is. So just trying to contextualize it through that way. But I did hook you up with a free trade question just in case there is a counter that comes to mind. Now, Jordan coming through with the question. Here, wide receiver, we're choosing between Harrison, Adams. I'm not looking at Waddle or Tillman here. We're going to go tight end. Do we have a running back for the flex? It doesn't matter. You play both Harrison and Adams in a full PPR format. And obviously, we're sending up an absolute prayer that Harrison has a spike week because the floor is just not there. Damien says, we also have McNichols. Thoughts on him if Brian Robinson out? Brian Robinson did practice. McNichols is only viable if both Eckler and Brian Robinson are out. Quarterback, we're going to go Burrow over Tua. I know Burrow's the tougher matchup on paper, but the offense should still be better. And then wide receiver, we are going to be going with Myers and Ridley, getting the guaranteed targets in the garbage offenses. And McNichols could be an option if you have both no Eckler and no Brian Robinson. But if either guy plays, then you can't look at McNichols. Tyler says we have Brock Purdy's backup. Worried about Tyreek and the Colts. I definitely think you'll lower expectations. But the offense is garbage. And like the offense will be worse in Miami this week than it has been. But you still play Tyreek over Malik Neighbors because the offense there is going to be even worse. We're going to go CMC in the flex, bench Neighbors out of all these guys. And then here for that second quarterback slot, I'd probably go with the backup quarterback in San Fran over Neighbors in the Superflex. Now, Ponch coming through, wide receiver. We are looking at Jameson, Devontae Adams, Shakir. I'm going to go with Adams as well as Jameson and hope that we get the spike. And then down in the flex, I think we are going to go with Shakir as well. Shakir versus Rome is interesting. Obviously, we've had more passing volume from Caleb as of late. But, I mean, Keenan's actually had the majority of the targets, and DJ Moore's had the majority of the points. Tony says, had a lot of depth, and I'm a playoff lock. Decided to go all in and try to secure the bye. So, after this deal, it's a 10-team, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex, which is important to point out. Tight end, we still have Taysom and Evan Ingram, right? So, there's no way we wanted to roster 3 tight ends. Running back, we still have Kyron, Bucky, Bryant Robinson, Alvin Kamara. Wide receiver, we have JSN, George Pickens, Michael Pittman. After this deal, you have an absolute garbage wide receiver room for a 10-team league. I still think in a 10-team, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format, go out there, overpay for the stud, go get Kamara. I think you won the deal. But I definitely would like to optimize our roster at the very bottom end with the waiver wire to possibly pick up some high upside wide receivers. Ray coming through says, happy Thanksgiving, brother. No idea about the flex. Let me know. Happy Thanksgiving, my friend. Here, tight end, I personally would go Taysom over Andrews. And then there for the flex, I'm going to go with Tracy. Where for me personally, I think Jennings would have been the play if Purdy was looking like he'd be good. But for what my understanding is at the moment is it does seem like Purdy is going to be missing. But I think that should be it for this live stream, ladies and gentlemen. It is 1 a.m. here on the East Coast, which is where I'm at the moment. So your boy will probably look to live stream a little bit earlier going in the future. And next year, I need to get these live streams under control. We definitely need to be streaming earlier than we have been. But thank you again. Really do appreciate you. I will be live tomorrow morning before the games start. I really hope I get to see you then. And if not, I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. Hope you're able to spend it with your family. Hope you're able to spend it with your friends. Hopefully you get to watch some football. And hopefully your fantasy football teams score some points.